where New Orleans had him on the sideline. But he came back, and he fared well considering all the pressure that he's under. They gave up 4 sacks to the Falcons, and they allowed just 18 sacks all season last year in New Orleans.
I have 2 tight ends on one team that both scored 0 points. And they've got a quarterback tight end who can. I think you could draft him as a tight end. I think he's a tight end in most leagues now. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember one year in fantasy they did like the slash because he was being used in both, and it was towards the end of the season.
It may be my claim.
Arthur Smith postgame
was pissed after the game.
Quote: "You guys wrote our obituary back in May. You will continue to write our obituary. Who cares? We have 16 more games." That from Arthur Smith. That's a game you got to win, Art. You're up 13 in the fourth.
Art's never lashed out at the press, as far as I know.
Well, that's him being frustrated based on the fact he knows they should have won that game.
Yes. And the obituaries were concerning the tanking. That was after the Matt Ryan.
It's also him starting to spin into the rest of the season of what he's going to be telling his team. No one thinks you're any good. They buried you back then. They buried you now. It's gonna be up to us if we pick up the pieces and move forward. So I understand the message he's sending to his team when he says that about the media.
Credit to the
Falcons. Gotta have an enemy, Paul. You gotta have an
defense in the first half, but New Orleans deserves a ton of credit. I said they don't deserve to win the game. I mean, they figured it out. They made some adjustments. For those who say, "Oh, halftime, you don't have enough time to make adjustments," they came back out and threw for 230 yards in the second half. They made adjustments, and they leave with a Week 1 win. And it felt similar. They didn't turn the football over the same way, but it felt similar to what Cincinnati was trying to do against Pittsburgh, is leave with a win when you have no business doing so. Crazy stat on A.J. Brown. So 10 catches on 13 targets for 155 yards, an example of a team that has been running the football well, that made a concerted effort to be more balanced. They still ran it extremely well yesterday against Detroit, and then got their player involved. Game plan specific for A.J. Brown. That's the 5th most yards by any player in his team debut in NFL history. He's the first Eagle with 10 or more catches and 155 or more yards in a game since 2014. And I sent you guys a text, I believe, around halftime. I said he's the best player on the field in this game. Hands down. Easy. He was great.
And did you have the ranking all time for premieres on a team that he ranks in NFL history?
Yeah, 5th.
Yeah, fifth best performance all time. He was great. I was surprised at the imbalance of how the offense, passing-wise, was all him for the most part. That's going to get figured out. But A.J. Brown is a guy who plays with a chip on his shoulder to begin with. And it's clear if you read his Twitter feed that he's built an even bigger chip on his shoulder this year in Philly. That's good news for Eagles fans. And my pick, and I think you guys may have picked them as well, at least one of you, pick for the division in the NFC East, looks a lot better after 1 week. Maybe they get some resistance from the Giants now that they're up and coming. But, man, with the Cowboys situation at quarterback and after the way they looked offensively in that game, Eagles are looking good in that division.
X-rays were negative on Mac Jones with his back, but he's getting further tests today as they arrive back in Foxborough after their week-long stay in Miami. Trailed 17-0 at halftime.
Yeah, the whole let's get down there early and prep, that really didn't pay off too well for the Patriots in that game. No even fast start in a loss to point to in that one.
There were two big plays that really swung it in Miami's favor. It wasn't much of a game to watch, I'm saying, except for the 2 plays where Miami came through with a strip sack and a interception return for a touchdown or a fumble return for a touchdown. That was one of them. And had another big play in this with Jalen Waddle in the first half.
What would have helped them prep is having offensive coaches coach their offense.
Great throw from Tua, too, on the play to Waddle. Thread the needle and for a touchdown.
Hey, Miami may have a running back. Chase Edmonds, 70% of the carries in this game and played well. And Mike McDaniel's the first Dolphins head coach to win his debut since
Nick Saban.
Nick Saban. Headlines across the league next.
If you're looking to place a bet on a game today or a futures wager, head to OutKick's Odds Finder. OutKick.com/odds is where you're going to find spreads, totals, and moneyline odds for every upcoming game. And I love it because it's super easy to navigate. Bookmark OutKick.com/odds and make OutKick bets a part of your daily sports betting routine. For bets decided by season-long results, check out OutKick's Futures Finder at OutKick.com/futures. Just select your state and place your bet. It's that simple. And similar to the Futures Finder, the Prop Bet Finder allows you to search by player, team, or game for any sport. Check out OutKick.com/props, and from there, click the odds tab. You're going to go directly to the sports book to make your bet. Boost your game day experience with OutKick bets. OutKick.com/betting. Get the edge with OutKick bets.
One game to go across the NFL for Week 1 as Seattle hosts Denver. OutKick 360 rolls on from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Guys, have we learned our lesson based on bad teams playing well in Week 1? Are we doubting Seattle way too much going into this game?
Oh, I said it.
Probably.
I said
You
at the
said
end
it
of last week, I'm like, I bet this thing is coming right down to the wire. And that Seattle's going to have a chance to pull off the shocking upset in Week 1.
I'm praying not, because I told you guys about this knockout pool Titans media are having, and I changed off of Baltimore against the Jets because everybody had Baltimore against the Jets, like 85%. I thought this is Titanic if
the Jets
win.
You're good.
So I got off of it and I took San Francisco.
Oh.
So with about 6 minutes left in that game, I went over to the guy running it,
good.
and I threw him another $10, and I said, Denver tomorrow night. So I'm in it the second time, but this is the only entry I can have. So I could conceivably, if Seattle wins tonight, be $20 in and be done on the first weekend on 2 games.
On 2 games that seem
But
like
that's another
locks.
reason why the state of the league is so good. I use that as evidence all the time. I do think, Chad, I mean, personnel-wise, Seattle is nowhere close to Denver on so many levels. Now, that doesn't mean, I mean, I think the Titans are a lot better personnel-wise than the Giants. It doesn't mean you can't win. But how many of these can we have in
week
1
one?
weekend?
It's week 1. Everyone believes in week 1. Geno Smith is quoted as saying, this is going to be the great hero rising story of the NFL.
He said, hero rising again. And I thought to myself, when has Geno Smith risen the first time?
When has Geno Smith been a hero? That was what my
Let's
initial
break
thought was.
this down
You
for
have
a
to
minute.
first be the hero. No one really ever liked you.
So
You got punched by some undrafted free agent. And, I mean, that's not what –
Right.
If you're a quarterback that people like, you
You've
don't stiff
won
the
big
undrafted
games.
free agent on a payment and get punched in the face. And then that guy loses
All
his
right,
job
so
because
first
of it.
off,
That's not a hero move,
He's
Geno.
casting himself as a hero.
No one's hero.
Then he's casting himself as a fallen hero. Then he's giving himself a chance to rise again.
It's that great.
It's
a tale
There's
as
a
old as
lot
time.
packed into this one sentence.
Hero falls. You think
Hero
he's dead, and
rises
he rises
again. 3 words. Hero rises again, and we've just broken that down
Tale as old as
into
time.
a real crumbly castle.
Maybe he's alluding to a first and second half performance tonight.
Yeah, it's every
separate
single game
performance.
is going to be the tale as old as time. It's going to be hero falls, he rises, he falls again.
Yeah, he's
then
gotta
there's going
be
to
a
be a
hero,
small
like you said in the first one.
uprising, then he's going to fall again, and the Seahawks will be 3-14.
If Seattle wins this game tonight, Geno Smith is going to have very little to do with it outside of not turning the ball over. They're going to play great defense, and Penny is going to run like a maniac like he did in the last 5 or 6 games last night. More likely, he gets hurt in the first 2 series of the game, says somebody who drafted him in 2 leagues off of those last 6 games last year. I mean, listen, Geno Smith has to do something because the team's built also around Metcalf and Lockett. That's what's bewildering about the team. If they want to be a defensive run-the-ball team, then they should have dealt Metcalf.
Agreed. And instead they said, no, we're
keeping him.
We're not trading you. We're
Hero
keeping
rise
you.
again.
Yep, another hero.
Let's make shirts.
I'm intrigued by it. Just the Russell Wilson return, and I mean, it's going to be
a good game.
Yeah.
Also, look,
and a great atmosphere.
These are other dangerous words. They're due. But Thursday night game stunk, and Sunday night game really stunk. So
yeah, that game last night was bad. I totally agree. At least Thursday night, there was some intrigue for a little while in that game, I felt like, until Buffalo pulled away late.
I'll take some intrigue for a lot of while for 500, please.
If anyone doubted that Brady's into the season, it took 2 Instagram posts to prove how amped he is about all this. I mean, pregame, postgame, he had his video crew with him with the announcement of season 23. Again, the dude's not playing unless he's all in.
You can hit us up, by the way, on Twitter at OutKick360 or on YouTube. Big Red points out, says, to be fair, Chad, IK Inem Kapali was drafted in the 6th round. Not an undrafted guy who punched Geno Smith.
An undrafted
Chad,
guy.
stop discounting me.
I said my apologies.
He's out of the league.
I'm also laughing at a retweet from Kirk Herbstreit where someone says, "You still love Nebraska in the West?" And he put, "I was wrong. Sorry." To the guy.
Did Kirk move back to Columbus or not? Can we get a verdict on that?
I don't know.
I know somebody who would know. I'm going to text him.
My guess is he has homes in both.
Yeah, but he lives in one of them.
I'm willing to bet Kirk Herbstreit has multiple homes. If I had to put my hard-earned money on it, I'd say that man has multiple homes.
Scott Frost is always going to have a home in Lincoln, Nebraska. And while you say, well, they just fired him. Well, they fired him without waiting until October 1st when the buyout significantly drops. Chad, because of the buyout structure, were you surprised they fired him after Nebraska lost this weekend to Georgia Southern.
I was surprised initially when I saw the news yesterday. There's also something very comical about it being throwback night against Georgia Southern, and Scott Frost is the head coach in his last game, and he's wearing that just almost comical Herbie Husker cartoon on his sweatshirt, and I'm thinking, once the game kicked off and I saw him wearing that, I did not tell Angie this because I didn't want to set it down a bad path, but I'm thinking, this has Derek Dooley on a stool with the crutches written all over it in his final stand at Tennessee. That wasn't even a stand because he couldn't stand.
His final stand.
Because he was on crutches. When he had that just awful, it was a cartoon character on there. Now,
at least Tennessee let him get to crutches because at one time he was just in a wheelchair.
Yes, exactly. He was up in the press box for
Georgia
one game against
Southern
Mississippi State.
Looked really great.
Georgia Southern looked great against a terrible Nebraska defense.
They looked great.
And Nebraska helped make them look great. But no, they had some shifty little guys that could not be tackled in that game for Georgia Southern. Now, on to Scott Frost. It did surprise me. A couple things at play here. One, I think Nebraska's saying, with that new Big Ten television deal, $7.5 million really isn't that much money for us. And they may believe we still have a roster capable of getting bowl eligible if they just believe in anything. And clearly this guy is poison right now running the program, and not a single player has any confidence. So we have to go with another Nebraska alum, Mickey Joseph, who they just brought back from LSU, played quarterback under Tom Osborne back in the day. Maybe he can be the guy that can give this team a new attitude, new personality, and they can win a few games this year. Win 5 more games and get bowl eligible. I also think this is a big week for Nebraska. Oklahoma coming to town. There's a lot of ceremonies planned around weekends like this, a lot of people coming back home. Tom Osborne is going to be in the house. It is incredibly awkward if Scott Frost is your quarterback or your coach this weekend.
It really would be awkward if he's your quarterback.
He's not going to be invited on any of the pregame shows like most head coaches would be, or he would not go on it if so. Everything around the program would have a fog over it if he was still the coach, knowing that he was a dead man walking. Third thing I'd like to make about this, I think Trev Alberts sort of gave the guy a break in doing this. Just giving him the $7.5 million, not waiting until October 1st.
My favor.
In a clear move to just save $7.5 million for the university and not give it over to Frost. I think everyone knows it at that point when they lost to Georgia Southern. Scott Frost knows it. So if this was anyone else and not the proud son of Nebraska who won a national championship under Tom Osborne, who came back home, who also, by the way, took the salary cut after the season and bet on himself, and it failed.
And
but because he did all of that, fired all of his friends, I think Nebraska cut him a bit of a break.
Can't you create a GoFundMe for him? Look, I understand that that's not a lot of money for them, but it's a lot of money. You can put that money to actual use. There are hungry people in Nebraska. There are students that need scholarships in Nebraska. There are a lot of good causes in Nebraska, but beside an exceptionally soft landing for Scott Frost, who already has a soft landing with the buyout on October 1st.
But you're looking at it rationally. Those same students would say, I'd rather pay tuition if you'll fire Scott Frost.
Yeah.
This
is not
fair.
It's not an overly.
I will pay my tuition.
It's a very emotionally tied in university and fan base, in that when you're one of their own, like you're in.
Yeah.
Like it is.
I mean, at a certain point you have to be out.
I talked to a lot of.
They just sent him out.
Well, there's
he's not in.
But
they kept him because
again,
he's their
you're
own.
speaking rationally. Like most of America, especially in the Northeast where you're from, they're like, get this guy the bleep out of town, and would be, heckling him at games. Nebraska has sold out games for like 45 consecutive years. That game on Saturday night was sold out to watch them lose to Georgia Southern, a Sun Belt team.
He was fired.
This is not a rational fan base.
But he still was fired. Like, they understand what firing means,
He got fired,
right?
but in firing him, they gave him a break. They gave him $7.5 million because he's a proud son of Nebraska. Again, I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just telling you that I talked to my wife and her family. They all feel awful for Scott Frost. They're thinking, I just feel so bad for the guy that he comes home and he fails. Like I feel terrible for him that this was going to be his big moment to come back home and win, and he lost. Whereas 95% of fan bases would just be saying, why did our school pay this guy this much money and pay $3 million in buyout money to UCF to bring him over, and then to lose like this and to experience so many heartbreaking Saturdays? They just don't think that way. Right or wrong? It's a different breed.
What names have you immediately heard?
I want to go there and educate them.
Matt Campbell would be the big one from Iowa State. Well, you say that. He's turned down overtures before, but that was before the Big 12 was possibly falling apart.
Well, I should
say.
The
way college football's headed into the two conference system.
Let me interrupt myself. I immediately say somebody's not going there. But considering they let you land softly on a big fluffy pillow if you fail, maybe it's a more appealing job than I think.
Well,
but you're not one of their own. So if you're a Nebraska person and you're invited to take the job, you should take it immediately.
I would take any job if it's a college football head coaching position in the Power 5 right now. You get paid to fail.
And if you're not in the Power 5, especially.
But
right?
can't Matt Campbell wait and get in one of the two conferences?
Well, there are some really good. Take Matt Campbell
But he would
aside,
be there.
All right,
That's why you go to Nebraska.
I'm not saying Matt Campbell's going to leave. He's got a great cushy contract at Iowa State too. But take him aside. There could be some people that are going to have opportunities, but are maybe about to get fired somewhere else. I'll give you one. How great would Matt Rule be?
That's the number one.
As a hire. With what he did at Temple and Baylor, if he wanted to get back into the college game, a cushy gig, and get a huge contract, if things continue to fall apart in Carolina, Matt Rule is a call I'm making. I'll give you another one. Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson's 64 years old. That would give me some pause because they hired an old coach in Mike Riley, and it didn't work out at Nebraska. But that is a program builder and sustainer at TCU. He's currently a special assistant to the head coach at Texas.
That's what Cutcliffe was going to do.
Right. So I think he would be in play. He's flirted with Nebraska in the past. Here's one for you. You want to go to a football school and get away from a basketball school? Hello, Mark Stoops. If I'm Nebraska, I'm calling Mark Stoops at Kentucky and seeing if he wants to go to a place that's all about football all the time and not have to deal with John Calipari talking about it being a basketball school and not have to recruit against that. Those are three of the names I've seen. Another one is Lance Leipold, who's doing a good job at Kansas. He's interesting because he coached at Nebraska from 01 to 03, and I believe he's from the area originally. He then went to Nebraska Omaha for 10 years, and then he as an assistant, he went to Wisconsin Whitewater and won 6 national championships in Division III at Wisconsin Whitewater, went to Buffalo. He left when they were in the top 25 at Buffalo to rebuild Kansas. He beats Texas in year 1 at Kansas. He just beat West Virginia in overtime. It's a great win. Kansas is the worst program in FBS by a mile over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, you work your way up
since
from
Mark
there if you
Mangino.
can.
I mean,
yeah.
I think Nebraska fans wouldn't be excited about that, but they could do a lot worse than Lance Leipold. And I think he would absolutely take the job and leave Kansas to go to Nebraska. So those are a few names that have stuck out to me. The assistant coach that's getting a lot of play right now, which I don't think Nebraska is going to want to hire an unproven assistant right now, is Jim Leonard, who spent time in the NFL as a safety, who's the defensive coordinator at Wisconsin. So I think he's 38 years old, younger guy, 38, 39. Anyway, look, I think Nebraska is going to have some solid choices. But it's going to be as much about Nebraska selling themselves to some of those top names as the other way around.
We'll get into Tennessee Pitt as well as Kentucky and Florida. Bama holds on. A&M, Notre Dame. They fall to a group of 5 school. Arkansas topping South Carolina. Briefly, though, before we transition to more college football, what'd you guys make of the Baker, quote-unquote, revenge game and how that all played out? Because initially it was Cleveland controlling the game. Carolina gets back in it. Baker was able to turn some things on, and ultimately this is it's a very average and pedestrian Panthers roster. They missed a ton of tackles. I think Matt Rule, you mentioned Matt Rule, I think he said at his presser yesterday evening that his defense, or it may have been this morning, I'm trying to remember where I read this, 18 missed tackles total in the game. And this is a defense that has been primarily built since he got there. And the Browns were running all over them with the missed tackles yesterday by Carolina.
I thought that Baker Mayfield did a lot to prove the Browns right for getting rid of him.
Well, his start, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he made some plays late and he showed some moxie, but I mean, a couple of those throws.
Yeah.
One of those picks was just, and he's kind of looking up at the receiver, and I'm thinking, dude, you threw it right to a safety. Like, there's nothing that receiver could have done on any route that would have made that any different. Disappointing, very, very disappointing start for Carolina. I really thought that you were going to get highly motivated Baker Mayfield playing well, and they could beat a Jacoby Brissett-led Browns team at home in week 1. They couldn't get it done. Matt Rule's not gotten it done. That's why I think Matt Rule's going to be a great college coaching option for someone next year.
Cleveland shaped this game exactly like you want, right? 39 carries for 217 yards, 5.6 a carry. Chubb was at 6.4 a carry.
Where was Hunt?
Hunt, 11 for 46, 4.2. He had a 24-yard touchdown. Brissett is the only one of my 4 props that I missed. You said it. Played safe, no interceptions.
Yeah,
but he had a 74 passer rating. McCaffrey only had 10 carries for 33 yards. They held him down to next to nothing. Passing game, he had 4 for 24.
Yeah, but he made one, and I don't know.
His long was 9.
He picked up some fumble that had no business. Baker Mayfield drops the snap, and somehow McCaffrey comes up with it and makes a big play and gets them back into a game. So he made some impactful
he had a fumble
plays.
Recovery. Mayfield dropped the ball 4 times.
It was. I mean,
he recovered it 4 times.
It took the Browns. It was a 58-yard field goal that won it. So I mean, let's also put that in perspective. Carolina was up, and then a 58-yard field goal won it for Cleveland. But the Browns in the longest Week 1 winless streak in the NFL, in NFL history.
We were at one of those games.
17 straight games up until yesterday. Only 4 current players were in the league the last time the Cleveland Browns won in Week 1.
We were there for a Titans-Browns opener. Was Mayfield the starter in that year?
Yes.
I think it was his second year, maybe?
Hugh Jackson's
Can we
final
get
year.
some next-gen stats on Cade York's 58-yard field goal and what it would have been good from? 75? The thing hit the top of the net.
It was
on a line drive.
Very good.
From 58
kick.
yards. I've never seen anything like it. It was a rocket. That thing is moving, and it's like a slice, like a tee shot on the way in, and it hits, I mean, at least halfway up the net. 58 yards.
He's getting drug tested this week.
That's the thing about Cincinnati's loss. Cincinnati's loss with the backup long snapper costing them the game is they lose to Pittsburgh, and then the Ravens win and the Browns win. They're lone in the bottom of the division. Everybody else won.
And we overreacted. To Cleveland's loss in Week 1 last year on the road in Kansas City, where it was a shootout.
Yeah,
and
that was a
Kansas
big
City won.
Game.
But we were all saying,
the Browns were like, man, the Browns,
they're going to be great.
They look really good. So they get this win. But this one, we should have brought this up when we were saying that 1-0 feels a bit different, even though you can't buy into much with Week 1. Because this is really just keeping it together until Watson's available. And then you're wild card worthy. So this is one of those games that you could look back on and say, look, they're at 500. It's been an ugly 500, but they're in the mix, and I don't think many people think they're going to be whenever Week 12 rolls around against Houston.
Well, I think those 3 teams in their division are a lot better than Carolina, all of them.
Yeah.
And I think Carolina's going to wind up being pretty bad.
Well, Matt Rule or Mike McCarthy out first. Does Dak Prescott's injury, we'll ponder this later, does Dak Prescott's injury help or hurt Mike McCarthy this year in season? And what do the Cowboys do at quarterback?
It only hurts him because they sucked on offense with him in game 1 too.
We will get in. It happened in the fourth quarter.
Right.
We will get into that. Plus, Kentucky over Florida, Tennessee over Pitt. We recap some SEC matchups next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't @ me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, can you stop hating on Patrick Mahomes? I said this the other day. Now, everybody's going to deny it, but I said this the other day. Patrick Mahomes caught more hell in the offseason this year than he had in his entire career combined. Patrick Mahomes, when he was playing behind Alex Smith, was, hey, look at me, guy. Wait till we get Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, when he came into the league, took it by storm, won himself a Super Bowl. You know what he became? The Steph Curry of the NFL. Patrick Mahomes led an unbelievable comeback against the Buffalo Bills. And then they didn't get to the Super Bowl. And then you know what everybody started saying? Hey, not that good. Huh? You know what I've been saying? Shut up. Shut up. Are you insane? The AFC South did not win a game yesterday. Didn't win a game. Not a game. Zero. Zip. Nothing. Didn't win a game. Now, let me explain this to you. The AFC South played itself. Colts and the Texans tied. I got to tell you, watching that game, the Texans were okay, good for a long time. Colts were bad, and then it completely flipped. And then the Texans looked abysmal. I was shocked, and this is not me as a Colts fan. I want the Colts to win every game because it's more interesting in your city. More people listen, more people pay attention in your city, okay, when the Colts or the local team is good. They just do. All right, here's the deal. So the Colts flipped the game. They're going to win. I swear they're going to win. Join me, 9 to 11 Eastern Time at OutKick.com.
Never miss an episode by keeping up to date on OutKick.com, but if you did miss my last show, this is what you missed. Fall doesn't officially begin for a couple of weeks, but since Starbucks and major retailers across the land didn't get that memo, we're following suit here on Fearless, kicking it off today with a cornucopia, a gourd, a September Thanksgiving feast of political losers. In keeping with our early fall, our autumnal theme, let's begin with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who, in the middle of a heat wave, wore a zip-up sweater and sat in an air-conditioned room to deliver an energy conservation message to peasants who, unlike him, are sweating their acorns off.
Everyone has to do their part to help step up for just a few more days. Individuals, the state, industries, business, all doing their part to help reduce strain on the grid. Californians, you've rallied before, and we can do it again. Keep it up.
Everyone has to do their part, except for Gavin, who delivered this flex alert from a location that was apparently so AC frosty, he had to bundle up.
After Game 6 in New York, when I realized the media attention around the ankle, my wife and I had been and have been working with ALS our whole lives, my whole professional life. So I knew that the cameras were going to be all over my foot. So I wrote KALS on my spike, and that's still in the Hall of Fame, which is awesome because but the sock got auctioned off when 38 Studios, the software company that I was running, was going bankrupt. I was trying to raise money to keep the company up, and I auctioned it off, and then some guy bought it, and I think it just got auctioned off again.
How much?
It was $92,000 the first time, and I'm not sure what the second time it was. And I was offended. Only 9. I thought well, this is one of the,
Yeah. You don't want to miss my next show this Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have some hot takes and, of course, some final thoughts.
Glad you're listening across our radio network. OutKick 360 rolls on from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Kentucky gets it done in the swamp. And Richardson reverted to the mean. Great week one. Really bad against that Kentucky defense. A big win on the road for the Wildcats and Mark Stoops as they win by 10. And they leave everyone that was at the swamp shocked.
Kudos to Kentucky. I said that they needed a performance like that to back up all the talk. And they did exactly what I was clamoring for. And I think, going forward, they need to do it against Tennessee, too, to really back it up. But for right now, they are what they've claimed to be. And I give them credit for it.
And last week at this time, my reaction to the Utah loss was Florida looked great. And at the end, by December, we will look back on that matchup and judge Utah differently than what we did the day after the game, which was Florida looked great because they're going to have multiple losses throughout the season. Anthony Richardson, he's not a five-star quarterback. He's a five-star athlete.
For sure.
But he's not a five-star quarterback. And if a five-star quarterback wins that game and comes up with some of those big plays that he just flat out missed on. He doesn't throw pick sixes the way he did. To no one but a Kentucky corner.
Great play by Jordan Wright on that one, but yeah, that was not good. I come away from that game impressed with Kentucky athletically. I mean, their defense is legit, and they're going to be able to win some ugly games. So I come away impressed with their ability to win a pretty ugly game. I just don't have any more faith in Will Levis than I did coming into that game. I just don't see it offensively with Kentucky. Now, they're going to look better. They have some weapons on offense. Chris Rodriguez, we find out today, is going to be back October 1st against Ole Miss. So they're going to have some weapons offensively. They can run the ball. So they're going to be really good. And that's a huge win for them in the swamp. But it's not like watching that game, I come away thinking, all right, Will Levis is the best quarterback in the SEC behind Bryce Young, and Kentucky is right there behind Georgia and Alabama. I come away from it thinking, if I'm putting a hierarchy of the East right now, it's Georgia then Kentucky clearly right now because Kentucky's got the banner win on the road at Florida. But I'm still not overly impressed with Will Levis and his quarterback play. But man, oh man, Kentucky's defense looked tough in that game. And Mark Stoops, he can come up with a defensive game plan, and he had the game plan for Anthony Richardson, who was throwing missiles into the dirt most of the night and could not do anything passing the football.
And we'll get to Tennessee, but I think in your stratification there, they gain a little gap with Tennessee because of what Tennessee didn't do.
According to ESPN Stats and Info, Richardson, 9 of 22 for 44 yards with 2 interceptions on passes thrown 10 or fewer yards downfield. That's awful.
Yeah.
And so the answer is one or the other. Either Richardson is just a solid athlete but not a very good quarterback, or the Kentucky defense is on par with Georgia. And I do not believe it's on the answer is the latter.
It's not on par with Georgia.
So
but it's good.
It's a bit of fool's gold with what we saw. If you have a solid defense and you're able to corral him, he had 4 yards rushing in this game?
Well,
after having 106 against Utah?
Kentucky has a defense that has the caliber of athlete where you can stop Anthony Richardson from running all over you. There's not a ton of defenses in the SEC where that's going to be the case. So I do think Florida is still going to look not maybe as good as they did against Utah, but they're going to have some really good Saturdays because someone's not going to be able to corral Anthony Richardson. He's going to have 160 rushing yards, and they're going to win the game. So that was my takeaway from Kentucky was defense is extremely athletic and can corral someone like Anthony Richardson that wants to run with a good game plan. They're good in the secondary. They've been opportunistic on defense under Mark Stoops. They continue to be so. But I also don't think Kentucky right now has the offense to win in a shootout with a really good offense on the other side. If they play Tennessee right now, would not be shocked if Tennessee wins the same way they did a year ago against Kentucky. Because Tennessee would have the offense most weeks where they're going to put up points against a team like Kentucky. Again, Kentucky's got the most impressive win so far this season, so they slide into that second spot in the East. But I'm not overly impressed with Will Levis.
And now they have 2 weeks to tinker and work with the offense a bit before they face Ole Miss in Oxford on October the 1st. So they have a little bit of time here based on their schedule. But they go to the Swamp, went on the road. No one was picking them based on the way Florida was playing and the way we saw Kentucky struggle a bit in week 1. That's a great road win for them. And I don't think many people saw that type of effort coming from Florida's offense after what we saw the week prior. And it's one of those season-defining wins. It felt a lot like it was a struggle. It wasn't the same type of game. But the Missouri-Kentucky game last year, Chad, in week 2, it felt a bit like, okay, this could go either way. And then Florida came out and was unable to do anything in the second half.
Well, it just
no points in the second half.
To me, it's crazy watching it because years and years of history of Kentucky being and also ran in the SEC against a program like Florida. And, I mean, Kentucky just looks like the better program the last 2 years.
Yeah.
They're the ones not making key mistakes at home and winning a sloppy game. The next year, it was another sloppy game, I thought, Saturday night. But Kentucky has the same level of athlete on both sides of the ball. They made the big plays. They look like a team that went down there expecting to win, not hoping to win, expecting to win. So just super impressed with the program that Mark Stoops has built and a team that's capable of beating Florida in back-to-back years for the first time since the late 70s. That's happened for Kentucky against Florida.
Stoops was classy after that game about tying or surpassing Bear Bryant. I liked the way he handled that coming off the field.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm glad you mentioned that because he doesn't like to mention personal achievements, but you could tell he knew it, and it meant a lot.
He had to address it to some degree.
No doubt.
And he did.
So Florida, I believe they have South Florida this coming weekend.
Yes.
And they can't overlook them, of course, but now they get Tennessee in a couple of weeks. Tennessee wins 34-27 over Pitt. A very strange game. Tennessee clearly altered their game plan in the second half when Pitt had to go to their backup quarterback. And I give Pitt a lot of credit. Pitt didn't look that great.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
roster-wise.
This is what impressed me about Pitt and Pat Narduzzi, and I know the broadcast talked about this also. It's a culture built on guys that football matters to them. It matters to him. Like the football is, the old 90s T-shirts, cheer is life. Basketball is life. Football is life.
Yeah.
That's the way that program plays. Like I watch them, and it's a tough-minded level of football, and they play very hard. And that's a credit to Pat Narduzzi and the program he's built. And they do have talent. I don't think they have Tennessee-level talent, quite frankly, but they've got a lot of talent on that roster. Yeah. No, they did a year ago. And
graduated.
There was so many, I thought, similarities from, the season before where you just felt like, okay, it's going to come down to one big turnover or one big play. And then it did with the muff punt by Tennessee, and Pitt capitalizes. But then Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman make a play. Those are two great players just making a play in overtime. And then it came down to Tennessee's defense just being smart and knowing that they didn't have much of a chance to throw the football in that game and getting after both quarterbacks consistently, knocking Slovis out of the game, and then Patty coming in. Tennessee's going to look back on this, and I think if you watch that game, especially that third quarter where they could get nothing going offensively, most of that second half, just no rhythm. I never felt like they had that rhythm other than a couple of series in the second quarter where they looked like Tennessee offensively. But they got to be thrilled that they went on the road, beat a top 20 opponent in a game that they didn't play well offensively. Now, I don't think they played well defensively, save a couple plays in that first half. But then they put it together in the second half against a team that at that point was inferior to them on offense. They got to feel great about it.
I laud what they did defensively. And, of course, you take the win and all of that. But I think you got to be discouraged that they couldn't get anything going. I mean, it just was a slog. And they were living on a razor's edge there for too long against inferior quarterbacks. I don't think the starter's particularly good. I didn't think he was particularly good against West Virginia when he got sacked.
I thought he was good in this game because he was getting hit in the face and dropping dimes to guys.
That's what
repeatedly.
I'm saying, though. He's there to be hit in the face repeatedly and to be knocked out of the game. The backup, is limping around there, and you can't put him out of his misery either. and it just was a game begging to be taken. And the fact that they couldn't take it, I felt like revealed something about their insufficiency.
Yeah, but
again, I feel the same about Tennessee, though. Like, I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, but they found a way. I mean, they still eventually.
Yeah, it felt a lot like Purdue, where they beat themselves, and in this case, they won despite that. And that there was a different feeling at the end of it because they actually ended up winning this game. And the thing I at least like about what I saw from Tennessee's defense is their identity to pressure the quarterback. At least they can point to something. 16 quarterback pressures. What do they have? 4 sacks, 9 tackles on the quarterback there. Again, it's not much, but I saw more in this game than I did from the defense a year ago.
Well, yeah, me too. Not good early, but they figured it out in the second half. But Hendon Hooker, he won SEC Offensive Player of the Week in this game, which is going to surprise a lot of people.
He started 3 for 8.
He was 27 for 42, completed 64% of his passes, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He added to his school record of completions without throwing an interception in this game. Guys, he missed 2 touchdowns that would have been big swings this game where he looked like Joe Milton a year ago against Pittsburgh. He just sailed it a couple times with guys streaking wide open in that Josh Heupel offense. And then Cedric Tillman dropped one that was going to be a touchdown in the end zone that's very un-Cedric Tillman-like. So it's a weird game, and then I come away from it. I saw that news. I think, really? Hendon Hooker was the Offensive Player of the Week in the SEC? Because Tennessee missed a number of opportunities in that game, and they just refused to put Pitt away. The Jalen Wright fumble, the muff punt. If they just catch that punt up 7, you feel like they're at midfield, and they're going to get a first down or 2, and the game's probably going to be iced at that point the way Pitt was playing offense.
Is this the slowest that they've played in the second half?
I think there was a concerted effort to slow some things down, which I applaud. I mean,
they talked about it a lot, but even Heupel said, we're going to play fast, but playing fast relies on the first play working. And when it's 2nd and 11, when they ran the ball on most first downs or tried something, when they get to 3rd and 8, they're going to slow it down. And they're going to try to get in the right play call at that point.
Their biggest issue, it sounds crazy because of how efficient they are throwing the football, is their run game. Man, it is a struggle to find any consistency there.
And it shouldn't be.
It looks like a glaring miss in the transfer portal by the staff.
And it should not be, because a year ago they were 2nd in the SEC in rushing offense. They get Jabari Small back, who's 15 pounds heavier. Jalen Wright looks better physically. They lose Tylen Evans, who is a great talent, transfers to Louisville. They got to figure something out. They got 4 offensive linemen coming back. There's not one thing you can point to and say, well, that's why they're not running the ball. They just need to be better. They should be better running the football than they are right now. They were not good against Pitt rushing the ball, and Pitt was not good against West Virginia against the run. So that's a concerning part about this is you can't just rely. You've got good weapons at receiver and you got a good quarterback. You can't just go into every game relying on that to work.
The thing I like about Hooker, even though he was not great in this game by any means. Chad mentioned the stats. He starts 3 for 8. He finishes 24 of this last 34. Not great, but at least going into a ball game, he's not going to lose you the game. 0 turnovers in this game. And his last 9 games, 5 of his last 9 games have come against ranked opponents. He's completing 67% of his passes. He's averaging 9.4 yards per attempt, and he's accounted for 26 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That is why you can build off of things despite some defensive struggles, albeit in a defense that looks like they're trying to build an identity with just all-out war against the quarterback, and a run game that I don't think is going to improve anytime soon, and could be a reason why you can't run clock, because incompletion doesn't help you, but at the same time, you're not going to move the chains with your run.
A few things Tennessee needs to do more of moving forward. One, they cannot defend the middle of the field. Couldn't a year ago, can't now in the passing game. Then work that against other teams. If we all agree they can't do it, there's a reason for that. It's hard to defend when you spread guys out a lot, to defend crossing patterns, slants, things like this, deep in cuts, however you want to do it. I can recall Tennessee completing 1 pass over the middle, and that was the little fake pop pass to Jacob Warren for the big play to the tight end at one point. They need to work the middle. Brew McCoy needs more touches. He had a good game. He had the big touchdown to get Tennessee started in this one. Yeah. But, I mean, if you want a guy that could work the middle of the field at his size, Tennessee needs to test. That's all I need to see more from Hooker. He's done everything else. He can throw the deep ball. He can throw the quick, the screen pass, the outside they run over and over again. I want to see him complete passes across the middle of the field. He had a couple sail on him. That was too high for the receiver. I want to see more of that out of Tennessee's offense.
We just got rules for next year's Major League Baseball to shorten the games. Do we not need something to shorten this game? I mean, that game was forever.
The TV timeouts. The game was too long.
Couple
Absolutely.
Reviews.
But the reviews were too long. There were, I think, more than a couple in the game also. Reviews went really long. I find that watching college football on Saturdays, I need to probably look it up and see if there's any data to support this. Commercial breaks feel longer than they were a year ago. Like I'm watching the Tennessee game and cutting over and watching Notre Dame and Marshall, and then I go back to the recording and I will go fast forward to 3 and there's still a commercial going after watching 2 plays of that. And then I come back and finally they're back in the game. Commercial breaks feel way too long.
Hit us up with your thoughts at OutKick 360. Coming up, we'll hear from Josh Heupel on this matchup against Pitt, and we'll look ahead. We'll peek ahead to the upcoming matchups on the SEC slate. We'll continue to go through Alabama, Texas, Arkansas topping South Carolina, and more. This is OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Davis Mills can't find a receiver. The pass rush gets going. Kwity Paye has 2 interceptions or 2 sacks. And next thing you know, boom, Colts can't move the ball. So they end up tying. Jacksonville, they do what Jacksonville does. They played all right, they lost. Don't even tell me. You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'm watching Trevor Lawrence, and I'm like, he's good. He's good. Is he Andrew Luck? Is he Peyton Manning? Is he Tom Brady? And that's who he's supposed to be? Yeah, I don't think so. I can't lie. I thought the Texans looked awful second half of the game. Colts looked awful first half of the game. They got what they should have got. Jacksonville looked like Jacksonville, but I got to tell you, Titans fans, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, I don't know. A lot of people say typical Titans choke. See, I've never really thought the Titans choked. I've always thought the Titans kind of come through. At least that's my feeling when I watch them take on the Colts. I always feel like, hey, they got Mike Vrabel. They're pretty tough. They got out-toughed yesterday. And I got to tell you, I know Brian Daboll went for 2, and people act like that's so rare. That shouldn't be rare, should it? This guy is the most fun football player maybe ever. Now, I put maybe in there because whenever I say anything about a football player, Walter Payton is always my guy. Always. Start to finish. Always my guy. So, whenever I'm going to say somebody's the best or the most, I always caveat it with Wally P. That's a bad man. But I got to tell you, this guy revolutionized the quarterback position just like Steph Curry revolutionized the point guard position. So stop with the hate on this guy. I don't care if he throws 5 interceptions next week. Stop with the hate. This guy is the boss. Join me 9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
Never miss an episode by keeping up to date on OutKick.com. But if you did miss my last show, this is what you missed. Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because that's another question that we had for you.
Oh, good.
About baseball writers. And, they get the first say in the Hall of Fame, obviously to the detriment of people like you, but should it be
really,
that way? And why I know that you don't, it doesn't matter to you as much because you're not placated.
Well, it mattered until I realized it didn't matter what I thought or how I acted. Right. Let's be clear about something. And I say this, and I'm not a liberal, so I don't include there are always exceptions to the rule. For every Jason Stark and Kim Kirkjian, phenomenal human beings and great writers and people who have written bad stuff about me, but they're honest and they love the sport. There are 10 Dan Shaughnessy's in the world. But my character was in question. This is a group of people who voted in and still support a known child molester.
A state visit to Brazil led to some compromising photographs.
I was sitting on a couch and the press was let in. There were a bunch of them shooting up.
Some of those photos were then used to sell lingerie.
And all of a sudden, the White House gets alerted to these billboards that show me sitting down with, I thought, my legs together, but the way it's shot, it's sort of suggestive. And then I also began to have the experience of having photographers all the time. I'd be on a stage, I'd be climbing stairs, and they'd be below me.
It's so creepy.
I just couldn't deal with it, so I started wearing pants.
Wait a damn minute. She wants us to believe upskirt photos of her were used to sell lingerie. Of all the lies that woman has told, that might be right up there with the most outrageous. You don't want to miss my next show this Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and you know I'll have some hot takes and, of course, some final thoughts.
Josh Heupel was fired up about all the orange that was in attendance at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Here's Coach Heupel after the game.
For our fans that traveled here, the amount of orange that was inside of that stadium, and in particular in the game that's honoring Coach Majors too, that was awesome to see. And players and staff and myself appreciate the efforts that our fan base makes.
The celebration looked great. Social media for people that were there, and of course with Heupel and the players, it looked like a blast.
I got a text from a buddy who was in the stadium that I will not name on this show that was sent to a group.
Name names.
And said, so we were an absolute menace in that stadium. Despite being a collection of 40 to 50-year-olds, we got into 3 fights and had 2 kicked out, in parentheses, besides the fights. So 3 kicked out for fighting, 2 others just kicked out for other reasons.
I was a bit surprised at the empties, though, at the overhead shot of the stadium. I'll be honest.
Yeah, me too.
In the upper deck.
Yeah.
Wasn't.
I was amazed at how many just Tennessee fans were just blended in. There was no real section.
Yeah.
It was like they were just everywhere in the lower bowl with all the Pitt fans side by side. Hence my buddy getting in and his group getting into a bunch of fights.
You're in my seat.
These guys don't want to fight.
These were some old frat brothers of mine. They want to fight. Let me tell you.
Oh, they
That's
did.
one thing they really enjoy doing. And still, in the end of their 40s, they still really enjoy fighting. Everywhere you go with them, you got to be ready. You got to be ready.
No ejections?
No. 5 got ejected. 3 got into fights and ejected. 2 others were ejected for other reasons that we were not privy to.
Public urination?
Possibly.
I mean, that happens.
That's my first guess.
That happens everywhere.
Yeah.
From Nealon to Hines.
I'll tell you guys off air why one was thrown out of the game.
No more Hines, Hut.
What is it?
I don't know what it is.
And until I know it, it's Heinz Field.
Acrisure Stadium. Is that
Look
it?
at you.
Well, they retain some type of
Well, they're still the
Heinz
official
name.
condiments of the stadium.
Oh, okay. The stadium with the official condiments presented by Heinz.
What if
Condoms and condiments.
the people at Heinz just bought every concession around there instead of buying the name rights and just put like a big Heinz bottle over the concession so it's still on everyone's mind when they walk around the concourse?
It's still on everyone's mind.
Marcus Freeman, man, what a really bad start for Notre Dame. They lose 26-21 to Marshall. And he may have just come out and said this. I was reading what he was alluding to prior to kickoff, where he said he was looking forward to getting his first win as the Irish head coach. And then Marshall won. And F's all around for the Irish. Here's Freeman postgame.
We all have to look at ourselves, starting with the head coach on down, and say, okay, what do I have to do? What do we have to do to fix the issues that we're having? And not just focus on the end result. We have to look at the lack of executions in all phases of our team.
There's such a movement in coaching in general. Give me this camera here. To look away from the result. There was some of this in Football Morning in America again. Just concentrate on the play. Not even the result. You're not even allowed to look at the result of the play. You just look at the play. Better yet, the result of the game, guys. You're not allowed to think about the result of the game. Is this a healthy thing in sports? Like when we played sports, and I'm not pretending like we played in anything close to college football or in professional sports. But isn't there some of it is about like looking at the scoreboard and knowing, hey, we're down 10 and we need 2 scores here or something. Like it seems to me to take a part of it. They tell you they want you to have fun. Well, what's the fun in not knowing the context of where you are and narrowing yourself so much that you're only going to think about this play? And you're not going to think about the result of the play. You're only going to think about what you're doing on that play. To me, that almost makes it like, I don't know, you're laying brick.
Well, it's what you say when you lose. I mean, this is
as a 20.5-point favorite.
Yeah, this is what losers say when you lose the contest. But I also get it because you're not going to come out and say, boy, we laid an egg and we lost as a big favorite, and I don't know where to go from here. That we're 0-2, and I'm 0-3 as a head coach, and we are defeated right now. I mean, if you're a coach, your whole job is to make sure your team stays together. So what you say after a loss is, hey, we got to focus on the process of getting better and not harp on this loss or that loss and move forward worrying about a process that will eventually net wins. He didn't say the net wins part of it, but he knows that's what he's judged on.
But I think
I'll say this about Notre Dame fans too. Haven't seen as many Brian Kelly jokes about them and him leaving. Because this offseason, when he had the fake Southern accent, and we had fun with it too, a lot of Notre Dame fans took great glee in Brian Kelly. And I'm thinking, Brian Kelly doesn't look so bad right now, does he?
Well,
when your young coach is still trying to figure things out.
I don't think you guys are wrong in saying that's coming from coaches trying to build from losing to winning. But it is said more broadly by coaches, period, I find, that you're not supposed to regard the result and not even the game result, the series result, or the play result, and just concentrate on the thing, which to me makes it almost like and I understand it is kind of a manual labor thing, but it takes like the thing that makes it not manual labor out of it and turns it into manual labor. And these guys aren't looking to get into manual labor, are they?
Well, keep this in mind,
it's
too.
a lot of people mimicking Nick Saban, too, with the process
If I have a
stuff.
slogan about football in general at any level, it's not if you lose, it's how you lose. The perception of Marcus Freeman losing to Ohio State is a lot different than what he's saying at the podium after Marshall. It's one to watch for sure. We hit the headlines across the NFL next on OutKick 360.
If you're looking to place a bet on a game today or a futures wager, head to OutKick's Odds Finder. OutKick.com/odds is where you're going to find spreads, totals, and moneyline odds for every upcoming game. I love it because it's super easy to navigate. Bookmark OutKick.com/odds and make OutKick bets a part of your daily sports betting routine. For bets decided by season-long results, check out OutKick's Futures Finder at OutKick.com/futures. Just select your state and place your bet. It's that simple. And similar to the Futures Finder, the Prop Bet Finder allows you to search by player, team, or game for any sport. Check out OutKick.com/props, and from there, click the odds tab. You're going to go directly to the sports book to make your bet. Boost your game day experience with OutKick bets. OutKick.com/betting. Get the edge with OutKick bets.
Kicker issues and injuries lead the NFL headlines today after week one. OutKick 360, final hour, just like that. It's here across the OutKick network, broadcasting live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. The injuries, Dak Prescott out 6 to 8 weeks according to reports. He's going to have a pin and a plate inserted to stabilize the joint in his thumb. Watching it back late in the fourth quarter, I mean, it's obviously painful. And the fact that they picked up on McCarthy learning about the injury for the first time and his reaction, immediately made me think, does he think he's a dead man walking?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that your own job necessarily flashes before your eyes then as much as we're screwed. Just the initial, this team that I'm working with right now, we're all in for it now that Dak Prescott is out. The crazy thing is the back-to-back hits by the same player on the thumb and not really knowing which one exactly broke it. But there's 2 consecutive hits that it could have been the combination of 2. Could have broken it the first time and then tried to throw it again and then hit it again and aggravated. But it was crazy to see that.
What was the go-to line you were talking about with coaches? Like we're going to just one play at a time or whatever?
Process.
Process.
And not the
go-to. We're not going to look at the result.
The go-to line of players in general that just say, you know what, I'm going to come back better from this. Yep. Dak Prescott, very nonchalant about it post-game. And I'll come back. But how? How do you come back better from this? You come back in 8 weeks, and you're 0-1 now.
Are you getting
Cooper Rush is your backup quarterback?
And your thumb is never going to be better. It might be the same, but it'll always have the remnants of having been cracked.
I always think about like a bionic man when they say that. Like, are you going to get a steel implant in your thumb? Like, how are you going to come back better post-injury? Are you doing something scientifically that we don't know about?
Things we say.
You're going to be like Henry Rowan Gardner and Rookie of the Year, and they're going to put your arm or your thumb in a position to throw it even harder next time?
We just say these things to make ourselves feel better.
Well, they just speak to give an answer,
and
the media is conditioned to just accept any answer as an answer. And that's what they have.
Well, I mean, the media has to quote them. I mean, they can't just not write the quote.
But you can also follow back up.
But what did he say? How are you going to come back better? And then
how do you feel about the fact that you've opened the season and you're hurt again? Oh, you know what?
Feel great about it.
I'm out 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm going to come back better from this. And it's just something, injuries happen, and I'm thinking like, really, dude, you're wasting another year as one of the. I mean, you are treated as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. You're playing for the Dallas Cowboys, and at some point, it's time to put up or shut up. And you have this terrible injury that happens at the end of a fourth quarter where you're getting stomped. There was no life to your offense whatsoever, and you're coming back better from that. Like it's just an answer to say, just to give an answer to podium.
Well, it has to say words. He might come back better. I think it comes back the same. The Cowboys aren't coming back better.
No.
Cowboys are DONE.
Well, that's my point.
You
though.
could also just say
it's another year wasted.
So who's the team?
That's my point of the offseason. Jerry Jones, 80. Well, he can't wait too much longer if he wants to win another Super Bowl.
I just wouldn't be able to.
Been ticking on him for a long time.
If I was Dak Prescott, I just would not be able to put on a phony face of like optimism and confidence.
It's part of the job.
After that, though,
it's kind of part of the job. But what do you do? Hang your head?
You don't have to be. But my point is, like, what's wrong with just saying,
"Damn, I'm pissed."
Hey, I was told that I could be back in 6 to 8 weeks. That's what I hope to see, and we'll see what happens. When I come back and how it
disappointed,
feels.
Frustrated. I'm going to go home and drink a beer and cry.
But to what Hutton's saying about, instead of just saying I'm going to come back better than ever, just say,
cool.
In 6 to 8 weeks, I've been told this is very frustrating. This bleep continues to happen. But I hope in 6 to 8 weeks that I'll see how it feels then, and hopefully I'll be okay.
Okay, so we did.
That would be my mindset at the time. Well, maybe, I don't know. I'll come back. I probably can't grip the football when I come back for all I know.
Exactly.
That's what I'm thinking in my head, right?
We did our playoff fields for the NFC and the AFC. My last team out was the Saints. I hate the Saints. I mean, I don't like this Saints team. And it's not anything about their win, but I got the Cowboys out now, who were my first wild card, largely on schedule and being in a division where I think they should beat up on the Giants and the Commanders. I'm throwing them out now because I think this kills them. Cooper Rush isn't winning any games of any magnitude.
And it looks like they're moving forward with him, at least initially.
Although
Mike
a great
McCarthy,
alternative to go get.
Well, you get to trade someone. Yeah, trade for someone. I mean, they've
who was the one guy on the trade block was Mason Rudolph.
Mason
Rudolph's better than Cooper Rush, but not by miles.
Oh, he was far better in the preseason. Multiple teams, according to reports, no one's calling for Cooper Rush.
No,
they cut Cooper Rush.
He also has to come in and learn your offense, which would take a couple weeks. But I'd rather have Mason Rudolph.
They cut Cooper Rush though. I don't know. So I think it's Mason Rudolph. And the two other ones don't make sense for the teams that would be trading them. Jimmy Garoppolo, we hit this early in the show.
Yeah, he's staying put.
At this point, based on what we saw from Trey Lance, you can't trade Jimmy G. And the other one I think is Gardner Minshew, but the Eagles aren't trading him to
I think
Dallas.
You gotta keep him put. I mean, unless they come knock you over the head with some gigantic
Yeah.
offer. So I'm putting I'm putting New Orleans in the playoffs now. What are you guys?
I have New Orleans winning the division.
Yeah. So, but who was your last team out? And would you swap them for the Cowboys now?
Yes, the Cowboys are out.
Who was your team?
And I think I had the Cowboys in. I don't have it in front
You
of me
did.
right now.
You did.
But oh gosh, I don't know. Who would I put
Who's
in
a
over the
fringe
Cowboys now?
NFC team that you?
And mine was probably San Fran. I'm trying to think of the other ones.
Yeah, I think San Francisco.
Davies got them over there. My list consisted of the 7.
How great do you feel that your team just got beat by Chicago and has an insufficient? That's my point. Broader point is we're all going to be putting in a team that we hate in the NFC.
Yeah,
in the AFC, we'd be like, oh, well, good. We've got a good team to slide in.
I don't think I had the Saints in, so I'd probably slide the
You and
Saints
I would
in
both be putting the
also
Saints
and the
in.
Cowboys out.
I really don't like them.
I mean, I'm tempted to say the Lions, but I'm not going to say that.
Lions aren't good.
Lions lost by 3 on a day where Philly was really good.
Well, so multiple times throughout the game, I was able to watch 3.5 quarters of this game. Philly got up by two different scores, 2 possessions, multiple times, and they could not put Detroit away. And one of the underrated players of the week is Swift, the running back in Detroit.
Yeah,
his numbers, I mean, no one's mentioning DeAndre Swift today because of what Lamar Jackson did. But not just because they lost. I mean, not Lamar Jackson, because of what A.J. Brown did, 128 yards on 6 catches in the first half by A.J. Brown, and everyone's tweeting about the Philadelphia Eagles because they separated a score for the vast majority of the game. But DeAndre Swift, 15 carries for 144 yards. And they still maintain that they want to split reps in the backfield in Detroit. I don't know how you don't give this guy
Williams?
more. Yeah, and he was good too early. I don't know how you don't give this guy more touches. Philly, by the way, gashed the Lions' run defense just like they did in the pass game too.
I'm not giving the Lions bonus points for losing close to a good team. The Lions lose close. That's what they did last year. Until they start winning close, then I'll start noticing them. But if they're getting gashed running and losing close, what's changed?
Well, the unfortunate part was they had a chance to get the ball back very late, down 3, and you were talking about getting gashed. It was a 3rd and 1. They had, I think, Miles Sanders hemmed up in the backfield, and he gets like a 25-yard gain to end the game. And I'm thinking,
but Philly,
to what you're saying, Paul, that's the Detroit Lions not just making that one play late. They need to make to give themselves a chance.
Also, their quarterback's Jared Goff. Nothing's going to change about that. He's not going to turn into a guy that's going to be
Jared Goff, by the way,
basis.
for a starting quarterback, was almost completely non-existent on the entirety of Hard Knocks. And it's so weird because every starting quarterback has always been profiled in a big way. I wonder if because of the last time he was on Hard Knocks.
And he said he didn't know where the sun rose.
If that's exactly. If he had had the final cut and to tell the team, I don't want to be on this anymore because last time I
got embarrassed.
I was uncanny. I made a fool of myself. The only thing they showed him doing was his charity. They promoted his charity in inner city Detroit with him in a boardroom with high school students in one episode, and that's it.
He probably told the team, I'm not interested in being featured on there, and then he was intentionally boring AF when cameras were around to make sure he wasn't on there.
So Goff yesterday, 21 of 37, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception.
Not bad.
Hurts, 18 of 32, 243 yards.
And ran.
He ran 17 times for 90 yards. Sanders had 13 carries for 96 yards. Gainwell had 5 for 20. Scott 4 for 10. I mean, all the touchdowns came rushing. And then A.J. Brown, in his debut, shows up and makes impactful catches that lead to scores.
And he would not go down. I mean, he needed to be dragged down by multiple people at the end of many of those catches. Just a physical beast.
You know, it's I don't think it's a stretch to say that with that trade, we may end up seeing 2 ships passing in the night with those 2 franchises.
Could.
If the Titans don't figure out pass-catching targets and quick, because they're about to be 0-2, certainly looks like, then they get the Raiders. This thing could go south in a hurry, and Philly, for 1 week, looked pretty damn good. And Jalen Hurts looked really good in that game. Now that he's got a viable guy in A.J. Brown with that team.
Throw to their number 2.
And you combine that with the fact that other than the Giants looking surprisingly good in week 1 with Saquon Barkley, the Cowboys are virtually out with Dak Prescott out. The Commanders are the Commanders. Philly's the favorite now in that division. I'm just going to put that out there into the atmosphere and let you guys deal with it as you will.
The Commanders, the Jags had just 3 points at halftime. Trevor Lawrence, he had led a nice drive to begin the third quarter. Touchdown pass to James Robinson. I'm thinking, okay, here comes the DraftKings money line props and the money line underdogs from Friday, where we bet the Vikings as a money line underdog at home. Win that, even though the line flipped whenever Green Bay announced all the 3 players, starters, were going to be held out of this game. The line flipped by -1.5 for Minnesota at kickoff. We got it at plus money on Friday. That counts. We also we lost Dallas, by the way. That was horrible. And we should have won. We should have won Jacksonville. They rally back. My Jags rally back for me in week 1.
The rally Jags.
And wouldn't you know it, another example of an offense targeting their top guys. Props to you, Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin getting double-teamed, you still get him the football. You don't just start finding your 4th and 5th best options because they're on the field on third down. You're not going to force it to your third-string tight end. I'm alluding to the Titans. Jeff Swain was a part of their game plan, and the reason he's on the field is for his blocking, and they threw him the football quite often. And the guys who are known for catching didn't get many targets. Austin Hooper, Robert Woods, Traylon Burks combined for 9 targets and 5 catches against the New York Football Giants. That is alarming to me. You've got to, for all of this coach speak about, the quarterback's going to throw to who's open. The analytics are pointing to the fact that these guys are open, especially Traylon Burks. And if he wasn't running open, it's because they were keeping him on the sideline. That has to change if the Titans are going to be, to Chad's point, I'm tying back in Philly now, not passed in the night based on one trade. Because the guy that was setting you up for scores and helping you close games out was playing in Detroit yesterday.
And Christian Kirk on the Jacksonville side. A guy they brought in that everyone thinks is overpaid, right? Based on it.
Oh, he is overpaid. But
but he was targeted.
Yeah, they went after him.
I had him on my fantasy football bench, and it was a big mistake to have him
he played well.
out of Allen Robinson, who had 1 catch in his game.
But I just look around the league, and I see all these, Drake London. God forbid a rookie get on the field and get, 80 yards receiving and have an impactful performance. Not every team I'm going to reference wins. But the teams I reference treat their number 1 and number 2 guys as such. And it's a passing league, especially when a defense like Wink Martindale sells out to stop the run as well as they do. And when it happens, it's happened when he was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens here in Nashville 2 years ago to open the playoffs. Ravens shut down Henry. No big plays in the fourth quarter. 50% passing. Lamar Jackson gets his first playoff win. And we saw it last year in Cincinnati, or here against Cincinnati. And yesterday, another strong pass rush performance by Titans defense that was all for naught because there's not another option outside of if Henry, then what? They traded away that dude.
You clearly, if I could get a one shot here, you clearly were not listening to the 3-6 Mafia. What does that say?
Who run it? We run it.
Now, yesterday, we was the Giants in Nashville.
Yeah, they're talking about the AFC South, right?
I don't know what they're talking about, but they didn't run anything
Well, that's
yesterday.
their T-shirt, I think.
Yeah. Well, this is 3-6 Mafia. This is the Titans' attempt to appeal, I'm told, to Memphis.
Maybe they are.
It would be.
They look like they were having a great time at halftime.
What an incredible marketing story that it would be if suddenly the Titans got like 200 season ticket requests from the city of Memphis because they had 3-6 Mafia at halftime. Someone in the Bluff City's looking around saying, I'm going to start going to Titans games 3.5 hours away because they bring 3-6 Mafia for a halftime show.
Paul, I'm frustrated by Burks because I looked too often on the sideline yesterday, and there he is. There's 16. They're working him in. They're using that as well. He's eventually going to be a number 1 or number 2. Okay, cool. Nick Westbrook-Akina is out there. Akine is out there.
Kyle Phillips is out there. That's the one that's representative to me because they baby people into the lineup.
And he's immediately in there.
And they're babying their first-round receiver into the lineup, but their fifth-round receiver is capable of making the big catch on the drive to set up what would have been a game-winning field goal. I'll get snaps here.
I want to preface anything further on Treylon Burks to say the dude was he was mugged going down the field in the first quarter.
Got tripped up by 33.
And I don't know how there's no penalty flag on that. So, at worst, it's a pass interference. At best, he catches that and turns it into a big play. And instead, nothing happened. It was just ruled an incomplete pass.
Phillips did not play that much more than Burks. Burks played 24 snaps, which is 37%. Phillips played 31 snaps, which is 48%.
But I'm not even the snaps. So I'm glad, but I'm glad they're relatively even because they forced the football to one guy.
Yeah.
One guy got the football quite often.
One guy's the third down, probably the prime target on third down. So it's a trust issue because they trust Kyle Phillips. Clearly, Ryan Tannehill and the play caller trust Kyle Phillips. And I don't think Treylon Burks is
that's
there
not
yet.
a negative.
Oh, that's
positive. Not a negative. But it shouldn't be used as an excuse for Burks, who showed up out of shape early in the offseason and then tried to work his way through camp and did okay in flashes of camp. But again, we never clearly figured out how to define his role. We could with Phillips, and that's to his credit.
Robert Woods was the top wide receiver. He played 46 snaps, 71%. He made one early catch. He was invisible after that.
2 targets
and
total.
Did not separate.
Yeah, I mean
he wasn't open.
It's an alarming issue for an offense that, it's going to have to move the needle a bit passing the football. And we saw an abysmal attempt at that last year when Henry went out. And when Henry's not the number 1 option for the offense, you've got them. No matter how good their defense is.
And I looked at next gen stats from last year. Woods had a good separation number last year with the Rams, better than I would have expected. I think a yard better than anybody on the Titans. I think this is another example of the Titans waiting on ACL recovery.
Oh.
And they went and picked this guy. He was cheaper because he's coming off of ACL. But if Robert Woods isn't going to be Robert Woods until November again, this team is just waiting on Bud Dupree, Taylor Lewan, Robert Woods. Every year, a key guy who's not himself, who they got to sit and look at their watch on.
The reason why I immediately thought of Burks, if you're not going to compare him to A.J. Brown, we're comparing him to first-round wide receivers and where they traded up to draft him. Dotson caught the game-winning touchdown pass for Washington against Jacksonville.
Jahan Dotson.
And had 2 touchdown catches in his debut. In a back-and-forth game against Jacksonville, he came up big when it mattered. And credit to Carson Wentz for throwing him the football that way. And it's amazing that if they just make a kick yesterday, we're not talking that much about it.
We're talking about corrections out of an ugly win.
Titans fans don't care as much because you're 1-0.
But there's a significant rinse and repeat with the way this team opens seasons and how they play up and down based on their opponent. So get ready for a good performance this coming Monday, a week from tonight in Buffalo. But that's a doubleheader next week, right?
It is. Yeah, it'll go to
not
doubleheader.
Yeah,
go about halftime, overlapping Monday night games. But again, I'll say last year Seattle on the road, tough game. Titans coming in there 0-1 and needed a good performance and got one. But Seattle proved to not be as good as we thought, and the Titans were better than we expected. This year, I would say Buffalo is better than they've been. They're due to beat the Titans, and the Titans aren't as good as we thought.
Chad, your impressions of the sequence to end the game to set up the field goal yesterday?
It was amateur hour. I mean, it looked like a Pop Warner team. The Titans, I think, shocked themselves so much by having a great passing play late to set it up that they didn't know what to do. There was no play call coming in. They're just standing around. There's no urgency from the quarterback to get the ball snapped. Hand the ball to Derrick Henry and just push a pile forward to get more yardage. Do something. Throw the ball again. There was 18 seconds left when Phillips caught the ball to put them in position for about a 45-yard field goal.
Out of bounds. He's out of bounds.
Out of bounds, 45-yarder. They have to burn a timeout because they're about to get a delay of game. And then they use the next play instead of...
That was their last timeout.
But they could have still thrown the ball towards the boundary at that point to try to get something quick or get an incompletion. You could have had a run one play and rush the kicking team on there. Risky, granted, but can be done with 18 seconds. Have the field goal team ready to go and get out there and kick the game-winning field goal.
That scenario you're mentioning, though, is I think what Vrabel was thinking about the most, where you have some crazy thing happen. There's a pile.
And that's
fine.
It
takes a guy's while to get off the, whatever.
Here's what bothers me. 18 seconds left.
Yeah.
They're not prepared to run a play.
But you can't throw it.
They have to.
That's their issue.
They have to burn a timeout, their last timeout in this sequence. And it's not like it's a 27-yard field goal. I totally get the quarterback taking a snap and running backwards when it's close to get to the hash you want. They went from 44-yard, right around there, 45, to a 47/48-yard field goal by going backwards with Randy Bullock as your kicker, a guy with a history of missing kicks at this range. This is not an automatic deal. If it was an extra point chip shot, I get it. Get it in the right spot, center it up, whatever you need to do on that situation. But because you were ill-prepared after, shockingly making a play in the passing game to Kyle Phillips to give yourselves a chance, instead of, all right, get on the ball, let's do something, let's get it going, out of bounds, set up a play quick, run the play, get more yards. People are all over, well, it wouldn't have mattered, it was so fun. I bet if you got 7 yards on the other play, may have been good from where it was, the way the ball was hooking. Would have been a lot closer than that. They gaffed it big time. That's a coaching error. That's a management from the quarterback error, who also had another problem. I know they're claiming the clock wasn't reset at one point by Jerome Boger, who, by the way, also terrible.
Always.
And terrible in this game. But it was very disappointing to see that late game management from a guy in Mike Vrabel who's typically very good in clock situations and late game management.
Why are they more concerned with moving the ball laterally than vertically? It makes no sense for a kicker.
It's a very simple premise. I've never seen a kicker say, you know what, I want to go further out to make sure I make this.
And I'm more concerned with a hash mark than advancing the ball.
Have you ever seen a kicker say, you know what I need on this next play? Go back 5 yards. Or go back 3 yards and let me kick from there.
I do think...
Move forward to get it closer to the uprights. It's a simple premise in sport.
A 47-yard field goal, it should be a routine condition for a kicker.
He's got to hit the kick. No
Especially
doubt.
Considering they asked him which hash they wanted it on and the distance needed, where I believe Vrabel said he told the offense to get it to the 25.
25. He says,
and he was just outside that. And you see Tannehill start to look over like, are we good? And then you start calling the timeout and you set up Randy Bullock, and he still missed it. Again, he makes the kick. A lot of these issues
the pass got it
naught.
To the 27. Then they took the -2 to get it to the 29, which is where they attempted it from.
Look,
it all seemed very amateurish, as you say, Chad, from a coach that's usually on the top of his game in such situations.
Randy Bullock needs to hit that kick. I'm not letting him off the hook of this either. He should be able to kick.
Poor.
NFL kicker, 47-yarder. You should hit it to win the game.
Circa
but I also believe that you are, in sports, many times punished for your stupidity. And the Titans were punished for poor management at the end of the game. If they set that up the way they should have, he's going to hit that kick and the game is over. They were punished for stupidity. Doesn't always get you. But there are times I believe there's karma in sport, and when you mismanage something or you play dumb, it comes back to bite you. And in this way, it came back to bite him with Randy Bullock hooking a field goal to win it badly.
And Brian Daboll wins over a locker room who was asked post-game, hey, when did you know you guys were going for 2? And everybody said Saturday night in our team meeting, where he told us, I am not going to coach afraid. And then he told some guys on defense as the Giants were about to score, hey, if we score here, we're going to go for 2. And the resounding theme was F yeah. And post-game he says, I am not going to coach with the fear of consequence weighing over me. Now, that's all fine because he's in
After
year
he
one
made it.
and he's coaching the New York Giants.
And he made it.
But the team that resembled the Titans brand the most yesterday were the New York Giants. And that was what was so alarming for a week one game coming off of the performance and coming off a half where they led by 13 and dominated. And then their defense, they faced an offense that was very similar to their own, and they got pushed back. Hit us up with your thoughts at OutKick 360. Coming up, a big discrepancy with a couple of the AP top 25 voters. I hate the fact that there's this much inconsistency with how certain people across the country view certain programs. We'll get to that and continue to recap more NFL and college football headlines next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, can you stop hating on Patrick Mahomes? I said this the other day. Now, everybody's going to deny it, but I said this the other day. Patrick Mahomes caught more hell in the offseason this year than he had in his entire career combined. Patrick Mahomes, when he was playing behind Alex Smith, was, hey, look at me, guy. Wait till we get Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, when he came into the league, took it by storm, won himself a Super Bowl. You know what he became? The Steph Curry of the NFL. Patrick Mahomes led an unbelievable comeback against the Buffalo Bills, and then they didn't get to the Super Bowl. And then you know what everybody started saying? Hey, not that good. Huh? You know what I've been saying? Shut up. Shut up. Are you insane? The AFC South did not win a game yesterday. Didn't win a game. Not a game. Zero. Zip. Nothing. Didn't win a game. Now, let me explain this to you. The AFC South played itself. Colts and the Texans tied. I got to tell you, watching that game, the Texans were okay, good for a long time. Colts were bad, and then it completely flipped. And then the Texans looked abysmal. I was shocked, and this is not me as a Colts fan. I want the Colts to win every game because it's more interesting in your city. More people listen, more people pay attention in your city, okay, when the Colts or the local team is good. They just do. All right, here's the deal. So the Colts flipped the game. They're going to win. I swear they're going to win. Join me, 9 to 11 Eastern Time at OutKick.com.
Never miss an episode by keeping up to date on OutKick.com, but if you did miss my last show, this is what you missed. Fall doesn't officially begin for a couple of weeks, but since Starbucks and major retailers across the land didn't get that memo, we're following suit here on Fearless, kicking it off today with a cornucopia, a gourd, a September Thanksgiving feast of political losers. In keeping with our early fall, our autumnal theme, let's begin with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who, in the middle of a heat wave, wore a zip-up sweater and sat in an air-conditioned room to deliver an energy conservation message to peasants who, unlike him, are sweating their acorns off.
Everyone has to do their part to help step up for just a few more days. Individuals, the state, industries, business, all doing their part to help reduce strain on the grid. Californians, you've rallied before, and we can do it again. Keep it up.
Everyone has to do their part, except for Gavin, who delivered this flex alert from a location that was apparently so AC frosty, he had to bundle up.
After Game 6 in New York, when I realized the media attention around the ankle, my wife and I had been and have been working with ALS our whole lives, my whole professional life. So I knew that the cameras were going to be all over my foot. So I wrote KALS on my spike, and that's still in the Hall of Fame, which is awesome because but the sock got auctioned off when 38 Studios, the software company that I was running, was going bankrupt. I was trying to raise money to keep the company up, and I auctioned it off, and then some guy bought it, and I think it just got auctioned off again.
How much?
It was $92,000 the first time, and I'm not sure what the second time it was. And I was offended. Only 9. I thought well, this is one of the,
Yeah. You don't want to miss my next show this Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have some hot takes and, of course, some final thoughts.
So a bit of a gripe with the inconsistencies of how much certain voters on anything in sports, from Heisman race to AP top 25, whatever it might be, pay attention to, if you're voting for a top 25 poll, I would argue maybe it's not the majority, but a solid portion watch maybe 3 to 4 games. I mean, you think I'm being fair there?
Yeah, maybe.
Because they're all covering the game.
They're all covering the game, so they probably watch fewer than that, some of them.
But if you are covering a league or voting for a top 25 poll, which, I mean, it's more than just bowl games at the end of the season. It controls recruiting. Bonuses. No doubt. Certain programs breaking through the glass ceiling and other ones falling out. We have seen a bit of that over the first 2 weeks. And again, I don't have much to gripe about except for 2 voters. Don Williams, who covers Texas Tech, and he's done this since 1986. So, Don,
great profile.
I am sure with the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, you're excellent at what you do. Why do you have Notre Dame ranked ahead of Tennessee right now? In fact, you have Notre Dame ranked and Tennessee unranked in your poll for the AP Top 25. Explain that, please. Also,
oversight.
It's got to be someone just looking at a top 25 board and not even bothering to research what happened this week, and just kind of placing people around that.
Or it is, Don, it is an egregious typo on this graph, and I apologize. I am basing this off of the account Group of 5 that sent this out because they're comparing the Power 5 and how the Group of 5 is not moving up when the Power 5 can fall out, or they move up for a top 25 win, but the Group of 5 does not. The Week 3 top 25, Georgia jumps Alabama, so it's Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan are your top 4. Clemson at 5, Oklahoma, SC at 7.
By the way, my 4 playoff teams right now currently in the top 4 spots.
The only issue you're going to have is Ohio State and Michigan will meet, and then they could. Well, we'll see what happens.
They won't meet again. One will
they'll
represent
meet,
the
and
East.
then the other one has a chance to get another win.
Yeah.
In the title game, SC at 7, Oklahoma State, Kentucky to 9, and Arkansas beating South Carolina. Arkansas is now a top 10 program. But Arkansas beats South Carolina. It's a good tie-in. Ben Portnoy covers South Carolina. He still has Pitt ranked ahead of Tennessee. They literally just played.
Oh, man. And how
is that possible?
They weren't that far off in the rankings to begin with. It was 24 versus 17, and Tennessee beat them on the road. And then he has Pitt.
Where's Ben Portnoy from?
He covers South Carolina. So, again,
does he have the Gamecocks ranked also after going down to Arkansas this week? You know, I really thought they acquitted themselves well in that comeback where they made it look respectable in the end. So give me South Carolina at 25.
Again,
better than that. Put them ahead of Tennessee also.
I am looking at this and thinking, how is this possible from a guy who covers an SEC program to not include Tennessee as being better than Pitt, considering they literally just won head-to-head?
We just played the game. Look, there are...
I think it's people not paying attention to it.
Absolutely.
It's also just, like, you got to let go of your perception. I have harped on this for so long.
And it's not everyone.
It's
not everyone.
I used to host a show with Braden Gall, who covers college football, and we'd constantly get into this. Who do you think would win between these two teams? You know, you got to rank the teams. Who do you think would win they played? And I would always say, I don't care. There was some big debate about Oklahoma State versus Alabama, I think, one year to be in the national championship or the playoff. And I would say, you've got to go with what's been played, what you've seen. Of course, I think this team might be better. Does not matter what I think. I'm going on a body of work, who has a bigger margin of victory, who's looked better in the games they've played. And if they haven't played head-to-head, that's how you factor it in. There are too many media members who just want to go with, well, I thought this team was better in the preseason, and by God, I haven't been proven completely incorrect yet, so I'm going to put them ahead of this team. When, in fact, there are games being played that you look at those games and you vote accordingly. It's very simple.
Chad,
it's a simple process.
What's Notre Dame's record?
Notre Dame is 0-2.
Okay. Ben Portnoy has them ranked 14th in the country today.
I mean,
again, his vote counts.
So Ben
that's
Portnoy
my
has
issue
basically
here.
said, I saw them play tough with Ohio State and am just going to completely disregard a home loss to Marshall in week 2. Because what I saw, this is what I'm speaking as Ben right now.
What'd you say?
Hi, Ben.
Ben is saying what I saw, the game that I watched, because South Carolina had an earlier game that day, so I got to watch that night game in Columbus, was Notre Dame had a really tough defense and played tough in the horseshoe that night. So I believe they're better. I didn't see the Marshall loss, guys. I saw it on paper that they lost at home to Marshall, but because I didn't watch that game,
good,
I watched them. I'm going to put them right around 14 right now. That's what Ben is telling the country. This is egregious. Now, I will say, Hutton, I'll give something I like about these polls. They've been quicker to just catapult someone based on an early season result. Florida's a good example.
Better than usual.
Not top 25 to 12 after beating Utah. Kentucky, 20th to 9. 11 spots up after winning at Florida. Good. Let people go. Tennessee, 24 to 15 a week ago after winning at number 17. That's good. We don't have a lot of games to go by.
Now,
so you go by what you've seen, and if you've got a big win, some of these teams do already, give them a big bump in the polls.
A poll with quote-unquote less prestige, the ESPN NFL Power Rankings, which were big click.
Yeah,
that's
why you
clicks
do them.
at ESPN. They used to have far too many people vote in it. Then they scaled it back. I made the cut there for whatever reason. But here's what they want. They wanted you to get your votes in. Now, I wouldn't vote before the Monday night football game was played because I wanted to include everything. Once in a while, I would fall asleep at the end of Monday night football, but I would wait for the result. I got in trouble one time because I was late. Like I fell asleep and I didn't wake up until 1:30 in the morning or something. I got in that thing where I'd set an alarm for a certain time whatever. And they bitched about me wanting to see the end of that game to get in the result. I said, it's ridiculous for you to want us to vote without seeing the result of that game in order for you to have it up early enough on Tuesday morning for the thing. Do you want a poll that's accurate on what we think about the teams? If you do, then you have to wait until that game is over. It's part of the week.
I completely agree. I want to give a little secret here about power rankings and polls like this when it's on a website. Well, it's click, and I click on them. I like reading
Lists
Major League
and
Baseball.
polls. Everybody loves
power rankings. I like all sports. I like seeing power rankings. Just one person can do it. No one cares about the process to get to it. Like, I would read the ESPN power polls. I don't care that every NFL Nation writer at the time wrote it. If someone's good at it, to eliminate all this, just put, here's the ESPN power poll. Here's the OutKick power poll. It's written by Armando Salguero. Okay, fine. It's the OutKick. He's an OutKick employee. It's the OutKick poll. If he's good at it,
he'll have some consistency.
I will
with his
continue going
rationale.
back and reading it. My point is, we get so worked up on, boy, we got to have everybody contribute this and vote in on this. And you don't need that. If someone's good at it, assign one person to it. I'm still going to click on that poll.
And then I'm
still going to read that
questions.
power rating. I don't need to see the process and the algorithm that got you to these power ratings. I'm just going to read it if I think they're good.
Well, then he could also answer these questions. What's the rationale here for Pitt versus Tennessee and the gap or the lack of a gap or the whatever?
Explain every
There's a
pick.
one-man committee that could answer the question.
I find that far better than some mathematical equation that gets every writer involved at your website or publication to vote on it.
I don't mind the mathematical
like a small
equation.
committee.
No, the AP poll is different. I understand that. With college football, it's been around forever. I don't want that to change in the voting process, but these websites that do it, if someone's good at it, just have them do it.
Well, but
I'll still read it.
Well, so I'm doing a weekly thing where I'm looking at the top awards for the NFL and keeping up with it. I'm actually going to watch these games, though. I'm keeping up with every game to know what happened instead of just assuming and reading some opinion on, well, Aaron Rodgers looked great, but, he had a lot of drops, but he's still, he's the two-time MVP. I'm not going to include him this week based on what I saw from this game. But there will be people that do.
I'm far more likely, and I will, and I have, and I'll continue to. I will read that before something that's just a bunch of people voting. right? Like if someone's good at it, I'm more likely to read that than some.
You have the write-up. I just appreciate those that actually take their job and importance of whatever. And there's some importance in being an AP Top 25 voter where you're putting by conference right now. The most representative is with the SEC. And look, again, it's
By
hard
the way,
to complain.
This affects championships, not as much as it once did. But don't kid yourselves. Everything looks at AP appearances and how long you've been in there. And every program is going to, their sports information department's going to put that in their notes. How many weeks you've been in the AP? Where was your last top ranking? Have you won? You know, I saw Tennessee's already putting out. Josh Heupel's already won 2 road games against AP top 20 teams in his short time in Tennessee. So it matters, to your point, Hutton.
Yeah, and if you're going to include in your bio, I would take the time to watch some of the best games of the weekend that include the teams you're going to be deciding on.
Or even if you can't watch them. Look, I've gotten better and better at this. I travel on a lot of Saturdays. My kids got ball on a lot of Saturdays. You got to find a way to maximize the highlights you can watch and maximize the stories you can read to get a sense of what happens and rely on accounts that you trust. You're not going to be able, if you're covering another team on a Saturday afternoon and you have to get there and you have to write and you have to get from there, it's not feasible to watch everything.
If it's too tough, don't do it.
Well,
that's my thing. If it's too tough on you, don't vote.
I'm not saying it's too tough on you.
They'll take the vote and the clout to do it, but they're too lazy enough to pay attention to what happened.
Well, you can pay attention, but you're not going to be able to watch everything. If you're covering South Carolina plays at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, you've got to be there at 9 o'clock. You're going to be there. They play a damn 4-hour game. You've got to be in the locker room for an hour. You've got to write for 2 hours after that. You've got to drive an hour home.
No doubt.
That takes a huge chunk of your day. But at the end of the day, there's SEC Now. ESPN's got a pretty good highlight show. The Athletic's an excellent site. You can cobble together what happened over the course of the day pretty effectively.
You've got to spend some time digging. And I went too far by saying I think it's close to the majority. It's not. Well, here it is by conference.
You found 2 really good examples of people that did not do their job well this week.
Just egregious errors. But like Marshall wins in the top 25 against a perceived really good opponent. I don't know if we're going to put this graphic up ever or not. Against a top 25 opponent, we can see now they are out of the top 25 at Notre Dame. But so is Marshall. So those that were Kentucky jumps up. Florida, unranked last week, they win against Utah. They jump up to 12.
12, yeah.
Marshall wins over Notre Dame, and they remain out. So
App State also,
granted,
they lost their first game at home, but still, they're in the others receiving vote category.
2 very good showings.
But there they are without – you're not seeing their logo here in the AP Top 25 by conference. Point being, guys, there is, I think, a lot of people who – that preseason top 25 and then others receiving votes factors into how they manage the poll moving forward. And it's really hard to get in it if you're not in it to begin.
And
within the 1 through 25.
It can be pretty hard to get out of it if you're in it.
Yeah, but at least to this point, the vast majority of the voters have Notre Dame out of it, and rightfully so based on their record. And we saw where Florida jumped up and fell back, and now Kentucky's the ebbs and flows of this have worked so far. And I'm trying not to read too much into it week to week, but these things do factor in, and we're starting to form opinions now as we get into conference play. And then once that happens, you pretty much have the top 25 figured out, give or take 3 or 4 or 5 teams based on how these polls tend to go. If you're ranked 35th right now, are you getting into the top 25?
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard depending on your schedule.
But I think it's easy to fall out to that spot based on the first 2 results of the season for you.
Yeah, the first 4 out, so 26, 27, 28, 29, is Marshall, Cincinnati, Appalachian State, Kansas State, who we saw just rough up Missouri over the weekend. And another not good sign for Scott Frost is Adrian Martinez looks really good for Kansas State.
And briefly, props to Mississippi State.
Yes, they look good.
They were on a bit of an upset alert with a 10 p.m. Central kickoff. No problem. No problem for the Bulldogs. We will recap all of the headlines that we've hit on today, the top ones, including Dak Prescott and more, next on OutKick 360.
If you're looking to place a bet on a game today or a futures wager, head to OutKick's Odds Finder. OutKick.com/odds is where you're going to find spreads, totals, and moneyline odds for every upcoming game. And I love it because it's super easy to navigate. Bookmark OutKick.com/odds and make OutKick bets a part of your daily sports betting routine. For bets decided by season-long results, check out OutKick's Futures Finder at OutKick.com/futures. Just select your state and place your bet. It's that simple. And similar to the Futures Finder, the Prop Bet Finder allows you to search by player, team, or game for any sport. Check out OutKick.com/props, and from there, click the odds tab. You're going to go directly to the sports book to make your bet. Boost your game day experience with OutKick bets. OutKick.com/betting. Get the edge with OutKick bets.
Bet $5, get $200 instantly for all new DraftKings users. You've got to be 21 years of age or older, and this is for first-time DraftKings users at the sportsbook. Make a deposit of at least $5 in your sportsbook account, then place a wager of at least $5 on NFL or college football games between now and week 2 of the NFL season, which is coming up at the end of the week, September 19th. And by doing that, you're going to receive $200 instantly in addition to any cash winnings for your original wager once it settles.
I'm going under tonight.
Seattle and Denver. I am taking the under 44.5, and I'm also laying the 6.5, and I'm taking Denver minus the points and the under total.
I don't know what to believe anymore,
Chad.
boys. You know, day is night, night is day, up is down. Who knows after this weekend? But I said it on Friday. I just have this gut feeling
Geno Smith's awesome.
that this is going to be for one night, for only one night
Carroll's
in
and Genius.
Seattle. There's going to be some mojo with the 12s in Seattle. And Seahawks are going to cover the 6.5. I'm not going to pick. I'm tempted to pick them on the money line, but I will not. But they will cover the 6.5.
Chad's the only one of us that watched the Manti Te'o special, but he brought us all to some level of guilt based on our mockery of the whole Lene Kakua deal. That won't stop me from saying...
Don't watch it so you don't feel guilty I do.
That won't stop me from saying that a very important woman in the lives of our previous show died today in 2012. So it's the 10th anniversary of Lene Kakua's death. And we mourn that to whatever the appropriate degree is. We don't know anymore what that is. Chad, I think, mourns her far less or more, whatever's appropriate.
I'm going to stay out of it on this one. We'll have to come up with a proper morning celebration, I guess. But
I'll
I don't
send
know
a
what it
wreath.
is.
Still not buying it. Still not buying it. Hey, we will have more details on the future of the Dallas Cowboys quarterback situation tomorrow. John McClain will join us. We'll dive in with Barrett Sallee as well in college football. Hope you'll join us for OutKick 360 starting at 2 o'clock Central on the OutKick Network.
Do not block the box, but please, please lock your locks.